When someone violates the conditional lease order, you have to do an affidavit to the court. It should be notarized. The affidavit needs to include what condition they violated and what happened. Now, ideally, it would be the person closest to the violation. So I'll give you an example. If, let's see, Vanessa Thomas calls me and says, this person is not taking their medication, they're refusing to comply with treatment, and I would ask follow-up question, when was the last time they took their medication? How did you try to get them to take their medication? What were the reasonings? So ask those follow-up questions. In your affidavit, it has to be so factual. You would say, on October 29th, Vanessa called me at 2 o'clock and stated, in quotes, this. You can't just put, Mr. Smith is not taking his medications. Because it has to be factual, because a violation is a allegation, and you have to prove it with facts. So you want to make sure that you do that. And you want to make sure that how you find out that information. It's, even when Vanessa calls you, it's third party. She says this, and you may do follow-up. Now, if it's something that is correctable, say Mr. Smith's not taking his medication, you call Mr. Smith and you say, Mr. Smith, you better get your act in gear and listen to Vanessa, because, and this works for Mr. Smith or whatever. Or you're going back to jail, and I would recommend you do that. And he takes his medication. You still have to do the affidavit, but then you can put in, we got him back on track, he's taking his medication now. So they want information too on maybe ways that you resolve the issue. Because I think for the most part, courts don't want to violate. They want the person to be out and doing fine. If it's serious, then you have to do the affidavit anyway. But I think there's a couple times where it was so serious I had to call the judge and get this person picked up right now. You know what I mean? But most of the time, not. So if you can make recommendations, I think the court wants recommendations too. Like, we'll get them into substance abuse treatment if they're testing positive, or you can even put down, we think they need to be incarcerated. They need to be picked up. You might put that down. Or if you leave it blank, then the court will probably pick them up, depending on. And it also depends on the original charges. So say they're out on conditional lease for murder. If it's murder, probably every little thing, violation, they might pick them up on, because it's such a serious charge. So it kind of depends on that too. Now, your violation should go to everybody, state attorney, public defender, and the judicial assistant. You want to make sure, definitely, I talked to some forensic specialists, they were just sending it to the public defender. Sorry. The public defender, their angles, they don't want their client picked up and taken to jail. It's really the state attorney you need to make sure has that information, because they're the ones that are going to push for the pickup order. Okay? Maintain your professionalism. Now, say you work with a client for like 5 years and he's done really well, and then all of a sudden he blows it and you get all mad and you are upset because you feel like you did more work than the client, and etc. So you want to check your emotions, and that's what court anyway, check your emotions at the door. I've gone to hearings where the client totally messes up and doing whatever, and the court just does nothing and says to me, continue working with him. Like, thanks. You know, in my head, you know. It's like, great. So be prepared for that. It may not go as you planned. And you still have to work with that client, and that may be a bit challenging as well. But it's that, like, when you get assigned a client, make sure that they know that. If you violate, I have to report. I'm sorry. That's my duty. I want you to do really well so we won't be there. I won't have to violate if we're doing these things. All right? Promise,
So,
yes.
Leah, just a question. So when you are moving to violation, typically, would you not want to have a successful violation picked up, et cetera, want to be able to convince the judge, look, judge, I think there's a public safety issue at stake here, and here's why. Here's the evidence that sort of arrive at that conclusion, or would there be some other standard that would compel the judge to sort of say, yeah, let's go pick him up? Or is there some other measuring stick based on your experience that sort of drives that?
Judge to judge. Yeah, it is judge to judge, it's state attorney to state attorney. And also, sometimes it's events that have happened that have nothing to do with anything you're doing, like a shooting that happened. You know what I mean? Where everybody is high alert. And because of this, and it may not have anything to do with you, they are on high alert. And they will pick them up. So just keep those things in mind. Or change in judges. Like in Columbia, we had a judge come on board. She was like, how come all this is happening? I need weekly reports. I need violations. We're picking everybody up. Change in leadership. Now, in our state attorney here, there was one point she wanted violations on every, even if they missed one group. She wanted an affidavit. And you need to do it if they want that. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say, you know. Yes.
Circuit 3, they interpret the law that a person is entitled to a hearing before they can be picked up.
Oh. Well, that's their right then. But I would think it'd depend on the violation, but, you know, they can do. But the thing is, when you do that affidavit and you turn it in and you're assured that everybody got it, it is out of your hands. They will do whatever, and it's on them. You don't want time to be where you knew that they weren't doing what they're supposed to, and you didn't report it, because it's then on you. Yeah. If they don't pick them up, that's on them. Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes, like if they're on day springs, they're there, you know, so, yeah. But there's a lot of inconsistency for sure. Oh, one thing I was gonna mention for Lauren, yes. Sure.
What's the best way, I mean, sometimes I know what to do. Do you always, I mean, you tell the client when you're violating them, or do you not? I mean, it depends on the situation. I mean, what's the best way to do it?
That's a good question.
I would in some circumstances.
Yeah, so what circumstances? If they're not,
If you know they're gonna take off, or
yeah,
they're gonna freak out.
tear up some
Yeah.
stuff.
I just take it.
Okay, case by case basis. Yeah, I would think that would be the best bet.
I
But
think
if it's,
whenever possible, honesty is the best
Yeah.
route, because if they come back around and you ruin that relationship.
yeah.
And I do the same thing when I have to do an abuse report. I
Mhm.
tell the family up front so that they're not surprised.
Right. Right.
There's a good chance they're gonna have to come back and sit when it's
That's the
If
best
I
bet.
thought it would be violent toward me,
Yeah.
then that's
On
different.
some cases, but
They
usually-
usually go off, they do that anyway.
usually you can tell they're rational. Okay,
Yeah.
let's try to work this out. But some people,
Yeah. All right, so I promised Lauren I would go through this with you. Now, what if, say you have a client that has court in Alachua County and you move them to Duval County and they're living there and they violate. Who does the affidavit? Duval? What do you guys think?
Who's doing the monitoring?
Duval. Duval. Yeah, so our consensus is that whoever's monitoring the case will do the affidavit. Now, we've run into issues where they won't, right? So just let us know, Lauren, and hopefully she'll take care of it. In the like if they don't do the affidavit and you know about a violation, you do it. It's not a, somebody needs to do it because if something happens and no one did nothing, then it's everybody. So don't play a turf war. Well, they were supposed to do it and you didn't, I've done that before. I have done affidavits on clients that were not ours and not even in our, and I knew something was going on. I just did it. I wasn't even involved. It was like a person in our CSU and I found out they were on conditional lease from another area to an area that we weren't even covering, but they were in our CSU because ours was the nearest. And no one did an affidavit. I did one. It wasn't even my client, it wasn't even our client. It wasn't even in any of our circuits. But no one did it. All right. So somebody do it. Modifying the conditional lease when things change, like an address, if they need treatment or they finish treatment. Sometimes clients will move. They'll call you from the other area. Hey, I moved with my aunt or whatever. Sometimes you need to backtrack. That's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world either. Kind of depends on the court. But you want to write to the court if you need to modify the conditional lease. If it's not like a huge deal, you might want to wait till the next review. Kind of depends on what it is, and it depends on the court as well. Like, will they want to hear it before? Relinquishing jurisdiction. So NGIs, I think we talked about this, are open-ended. There's no time limit. Relinquishing varies statewide. I think we brought that out. Some areas will look at it, and a lot of times, to be honest with you, it's the forensic specialist pointing it out. Like, hey, this guy's been on conditional lease for 5 years, maybe, and he's done well. Maybe we should think about dropping it. Now, I think a reasonable time for a third-degree felony maybe would be the sentencing time, which would be 5 years. I think that's a good school of thought if the person has been doing well on conditional lease. Now, folks that are on conditional lease for a long period of time sometimes are folks that have not been doing well. Some of the folks on conditional lease, if they were not on conditional lease, they won't take their medications, they will go buy a gun, they will do all these things. Sometimes we keep them on conditional lease for public safety more than anything. All right. You guys need a break? I'm sensing that. No? Yes?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, take a 5